Do you want to do the
Good.
land acknowledgement before or after?
You can do the land acknowledgement right now.
Okay. So I want to acknowledge that we are on the traditional territory of the Tonkawa, Lipan Apache, and Comanche in Austin, the Chitimacha in New Orleans, Creeks and Cherokees in Atlanta. I want to thank them for being stewards of these lands through the generations, and that we can continue this stewardship in the future.
Great, great. Okay. Well, let's get started. My name is Nancy Moore, and I want to do a little housekeeping before we get started. Depending on your device that you're looking at, down at the bottom of the screen, there is a mute button, okay? Would like everyone to mute themselves, okay? Unless you're speaking. There is also a start and stop video, which looks like a little camera, which you can turn on and off, you know, if you need to. And there's also participants button that has a couple of figureheads that shows how many people are in the meeting. And so far we have 19, which is very good. There is a chat button. Also in the participant button, you can change your name if you wish to use a screen name that appears. There's a chat button that you can use to, you know, write, put information in the chat if you would like. Okay, and then there's always the big red leave button on the side. And so it can either be at the bottom, across the top, or on the side. It depends on the type of device that you have. Okay, also we have some guidelines for the meeting, and that, let's see. First, I have to read the mission statement. Okay, Eracism is the slogan of the group Erace, which was formed in New Orleans in the summer of 1993. We seek ways through person-to-person communication to show we are committed to treating fellow human beings of all colors with love and respect. Join us. Okay, back to the top. Okay, to get on the list, we read the article, and then we discuss the article, and we go in order of the article of who raises their hand. So raise your hand, raise your one finger, wave it around, because I'll be scanning looking for it so that you can get on the list. And please keep your comments to like 2 minutes. Be respectful, do not interrupt the speaker. We used to say turn your cell phones off, but now we say keep yourselves on mute. If you'd like to ask a clarifying question of the speaker, you raise 2 fingers. And this background thing, this looks weird. Anyway, raise 2 fingers. And the clarifying question is to ask, I didn't understand what you meant, or would you explain further what you meant by? Okay, if you want to further discuss something that the speaker said or make a challenge to what the speaker said, please raise your hand with 1 finger and do it on the list. 15 minutes before the end, which might be a little more today because we have so many people, we do a wrap up, okay, where you get 1 minute to give your final thoughts, okay? And like I said, this is the atmosphere of safety where there are no personal attacks, okay? But we're gonna go around and we're gonna introduce ourselves, and then I'll explain why I brought this topic. So I'm Nancy, and I have been coming to Erace since June of 2007, and I am located in New Orleans. Larry.
Good morning, I'm Larry, and I'm just good to be here on this beautiful Saturday morning.
Okay, thank you. Francie.
Hi, I'm in Austin. I've been coming to Erace just over a year, maybe a year and a half by now. And Nancy, Could I be first to speak?
Sure, I can put you on the list right now. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Louise,
Hi, I'm Louise, been coming to Erace meetings for over 2 decades, off and on, New Orleans first and now Austin.
thank you. Nora,
Hi, everybody. I'm in Austin and I've been coming, getting towards a year. I can hardly believe that. I'm probably exaggerating, but always happy to be here. Thanks.
thank you. Michelle,
Good morning, everybody. I'm also in Austin. Francie is my mother, and I've been coming to Erace since the late summer of 2020.
thank you. Becky,
Good morning. I live in Boston, Massachusetts, way far away. And I'm glad to be here. I've been coming to Erace for about 2 years. Good morning to everyone.
good morning. Beatrice,
Hi, good morning. I'm here in East Point, Georgia. Been coming to Erace since '93, and I'm wearing my shirt Jazz Fest '92 because that's when I moved to New Orleans from Washington. Good morning, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.
thank you. Stanton,
Good morning, Stanton, second meeting from Austin, Texas. Have hopes for a great meeting.
thank you. Phyllis,
Good morning, I'm Phyllis. I've been attending Erace since 2008 when I moved to New Orleans.
thank you. Erin,
Good morning, everyone. This is my first meeting, and I'm a friend of Michelle Manning Scott's. We were at the radio station together, and I'm hoping to learn and get to know people. Thank you.
thank you. Ginger,
Good morning, everybody. I'm Ginger Cashin. I'm here in Atlanta, and I've been part of the Erace group of Larry and Beatrice's for a number of years. And it's great to be with you this morning.
thank you. Okay, Bill,
Bill Ives. I'm in New Orleans. I've been coming for 5 or 6 years. I lost track. But I always say I learn something new every time, and that's the case. But the last 2 meetings I came as a result of the conversation, listening to others, I had a realization that I didn't have going into it. So I really learned something in the last 2 meetings. Thank you, everyone.
great. Cindy,
Good morning, everybody. I'm in New Orleans. I'm connected to Bill Ives, though the last names are different. Been coming to Erace 5 or 6 years. I don't really have a way of checking when we started, but I enjoyed it. I love how the group has grown geographically as well as numerically.
thank you, Cindy. Shara,
Good morning. Been coming for a while, off and on. Today's subject is so much fun. I was really looking forward to just listening to everyone and hearing. Very good to be here on a beautiful day.
thank you. Marva,
Good morning. My name is Marva. I've been coming to Erace post Katrina, and I look forward to this discussion. Thank you.
thank you. Leonetta,
Good morning, everybody. I've been a member of Erace since I was an intern doing my internship with this group. And I wanted to let everybody know my father's been moved from the hospital to skilled nursing. And Phyllis, I think you be the only one to think this is funny. My supervisor called me, texted me Monday and wanted to take one single person, lady from me and give me a family of 5.
Yes, that's sounds typical.
okay, thank you, Leonetta. Glenn,
Assalamu alaikum to everyone. Peace be unto you. This is Glenn. I've been coming. I'm from New Orleans, and I've been coming since 1994. Looking forward to this morning meeting.
Thank you. Greer.
My name is Greer, and I've been coming to Erace since 2008, post Katrina. And I love doing it on Zoom, I must say. Thank you.
You too.
Okay, thank you. Marion.
Good morning, everyone. I'm glad to see everybody. Excuse me. Let's see, I've been attending the Erace discussion since 1993. And as I said a couple of seconds ago, I'm glad to see everybody. It's been a week.
It has. Thank you. Jean.
Okay, I'm sorry. Good morning, everyone. I'm glad to be here again today. Although I have to leave early, I'm having my second outing in 2 years.
Oh, okay.
Other than a hospital or a doctor or a dentist, you know.
Okay, well, congratulations. Yeah, a lot of people are getting out more. Wonderful.
I know. I'm volunteering at the National Building Museum.
Great.
I love doing that. So, and I'm really looking forward to this conversation. This is a difficult one because it's, you know.
Yes, it's very subjective. And that's one of the things that reason that I saw it and I wanted to I was like, yeah, I was looking for an article and this is it. The reason that I brought that is because of Jean just said, but I really wish I could be a participant in this discussion. So I'll just talk about one of incidents I think that relates to it as to why I brought it. But one time I was in Atlanta and I was in a mall. It's been like 40 years ago, so I don't remember which one it was. But I was in Atlanta and I was in one of those little knickknack stores, little trinket stores, what I'm talking about. Does sell little glass figurines and knickknacks that you put not anything substantial, right? That you put in your house. So I'm in there and I'm walking around. This woman comes up to me and she says, "Can I help you?" And I'm like looking at all the white people in there and you're not asking them, do they need any help? So why you come to me and ask me if I need any help? So I was kind of offended by that. But anyway, this is way before Black Lives Matter. I mean, like I said, it's 40 years ago, it's a long time ago, but I just was looking around and I was offended. I really was, because I didn't see any reason why I should stand out and why you should make a beeline to come over to ask me for help. And can you help me when you didn't ask anybody else who walked in and out of the store? So anyway, that is the reason that I brought this article. And I think that we will have a really good discussion because I do think this goes really deep into the psychology, in a way, of racism, okay, or how you approach somebody or things like that. There are two sides to this. I'm not, saying the woman was completely wrong, but how did she approach him? How did she say it? There are a lot of different things that go into what makes something racist or a microaggression or something like that. So we're going to start off with Francine. Does anyone else want to get on the list? Stanton. Okay, Phyllis, but Cindy, Stanton, you raised two fingers. So you one finger. Okay, so we have Stanton, Phyllis, and Cindy. And Francie, you can go anytime.
Glenn and Greer both have their hands up.
And Glenn and Greer. Okay.
And Marion.
And Marion. Okay, Glenn, Greer, Marion. Okay, well, that's a good start. Francie?
Okay. Well, I'm going to go slightly off topic, but as you were speaking, Nancy, I kind of feel like it is more on topic than meets the eye, but I was so offended by the questioning of Ketanji Brown Jackson. I just had to say something to people who would understand from maybe a white person's perspective, how offensive those 5 or 6 senators were who were questioning her and using her as a prop to forward their own agendas. I could almost cry. I was so relieved when Cory Booker came on and said all the wonderful things he was saying. And I was near tears with her. That was so awful. And she's so elegant, and I just had to say that to a group of people who would understand that how offensive it was to this white woman. And I was really on her side. I felt like her. I really did. I felt like it was insulting me too. That's it. I just wanted to get that off my chest.
Beatrice, we need to stop seeing, particularly as women, we need to stop seeing color and see gender and stick together.
I got a question to ask.
A clarifying question?
Of course, that's all I asked. Yeah, that's all I'm going to ask, a clarifying question. Yeah.
Okay.
See, I'm offended the way you asked me that.
What? Come on, Glenn, be real. Oh, first of all, you don't have it on, and I can't see whether you have a finger. So maybe you should turn your camera on so somebody can see you. Okay, ask your question.
Yeah, I didn't quite understand what you meant by you were offended. You were offended. You were offended over what?
That I was offended by those white men assuming that their questions had any relevance and that they would. I don't know how to explain it, Glenn. I just wanted to get up and punch them all in the nose. On her behalf, but on my behalf too. I was insulted by all that.
Thank you, Francie. Okay, moving along. Next we have Stanton.
Yeah, I just wanted to relay an incident that I was a participant in about 6 months ago. I was coming home on a Sunday afternoon and there was a car parked in front of my house with an out-of-state plate and a beat up front bumper. I'm like, whose car is this? So I kind of hung out in my driveway for a little bit. And I saw this young man get out of the car. He was probably about 19 or 20. He was white. And he started walking across the street to my neighbor, who I know well, and she's a single woman in her early 70s. And I asked him if he was going to visit Kathy, and I said her name. And he said, oh, yeah. I said, oh, are you related to her? He said, yes. And I said, okay, I thought maybe it was a great nephew or something, so I didn't pay too much attention to it. And he introduced himself to me, and I introduced myself to him by first name. And then about 5 minutes later, I get a call from my neighbor, and she's telling me there's some kid at my door who wants me to let him in so he can use my internet. And he said that he's a friend of yours. So I was like, what the heck is that? So went back outside, started talking to this kid. Turns out his mother threw him out of the house because she was sick of him gaming all the time. And he was trying to find somebody's internet. Now, this article made me think that, one, if this young man had been Black, would that have been something that would have been offensive to him as a young Black man, that I was questioning him and asking what he was doing? And secondly, it made me think that if this was a young woman of any color, would I have asked her what she was doing? So there's a lot of issues that involve how we approach other people. Sometimes it's like, in my case, I'm gonna say it was sexist. I thought, young man, he's potentially dangerous. I didn't care what his skin color was, but he's going to a single woman's house. I didn't know what he was up to. And then secondly, a lot of it's in the perception of the person who is approached. And sometimes I thought of the cliche, a pipe is just a pipe, but there are other situations where, yeah, you feel like you're the person who's been offended or microaggressed. I get both sides. There's no good answer. That's it.
Absolutely, Stanton. That's what I meant by there are two sides to this. This is very subjective. Bill, and then Nora. Next, we have Phyllis.
So literally the day before I saw Nancy's article that she emailed to me to post. Well, first let me say where I work is a very big public building. There's lots of people who are there for the first time on any given day. And so all of us staff are trained to like help people who are lost. And sometimes I also have to give directions to staff people because not everybody knows every inch of the place. And if they come into a new area, they might be really lost. So the day before this article came into my email, I was walking in the clinic area where I work, and there was a African-American man walking really slow in front of me and kind of looking around. And I could tell he had some sort of uniform on from the place, but I don't know what uniform it was. And so I just said, because it's the habit, I'm like, oh, can I help you find something? And he turned around and he's like, no, I'm just here visiting my sister, who I think was working in our scheduling office. And I was like, oh, that's fine. You just looked like you might be a little lost. And he didn't seem offended. And I just went on. But I thought, I literally had the thought, I hope he doesn't think I asked him because he's Black. That thought came into my head. And it was not, because I help everybody. So I just thought this article was really good because I think it does matter the tone of voice, the words you use, and the interaction altogether. You know, like if he had seemed offended, I don't think I would have responded defensively like in this story the woman does. So I just want to put that out there. Thanks.
Thank you, Phyllis. Next we have Cindy.
Like Phyllis just said, the way you ask the question, like she said, can I help you find something, is helpful. And unless it's really a brusque voice, it's perceived positively, I think. If you ask someone in a very accepting tone, a neutral tone, a helpful tone, if there is such a thing, I think it'll be perceived that way. But if you say, you know, who are you and why are you here? That's a whole different thing. So when you are in that kind of situation and you're asking a question, I think it's important for us to think about how do we sound and how it's perceived by the other person. It makes a tremendous difference. In the school where I worked, there were very strict rules about who could come in after a couple of near kidnappings. And when you come up to someone who's there and you've never seen them before, how you ask them makes a big difference. So pay attention. Thanks.
Thank you, Cindy. Glenn.
I saw Becky's hand up.
Becky, okay.
You know, one of the backlashes of why people, you know, you got the mad, you have the what they call the angry white man, angry white people, is because being called racist is by just questioning a Black person. So now Trump has come along and have released them from it, that they can give an opinion just like we can give an opinion. The things we say about Donald Trump is true, but it's insulting. The things we say about him is insulting. He's the president. He was the president of the United States, but we insult him. We insult white people. But then if a white person would insult Miss Obama or insult our president or President Obama, then we are offended by it. We can say what we want about any white person, but we can't handle when a white person says something about us. So it's created a backlash. Now, you know, I drive Uber, And, you know, white people now say in front of me things that they wouldn't have said 20 years ago. Did somebody say something derogatory about Miss Obama, you know? But you know, we on a regular basis say derogatory things about white leaders or what we said about Nancy Reagan, all the, you know, or what we say about the wife of Trump. So, you know, it's a backlash. That's all I say.
Okay, thank you. Greer.
Louise have a clarifying question.
Louise has a clarifying
I
question.
did, but it doesn't matter. It's all right.
No, go ahead.
Go ahead, yeah.
Okay, well, I don't understand the point. Like, what's your point of that? What were you saying exactly? Glenn.
What I'm saying is that we shouldn't get so easily defended if a white person asks us a question like they asked the young man. Look, African Americans will ask other African Americans, "What are you doing? What are you doing in this neighborhood?" You know, you go in certain neighborhood, they will question you, "What are you doing in that neighborhood?" So what's the difference?
Okay, thank you, Glenn. Greer.
Being a citizen of this country, and even when we weren't citizens, how we moved and where we were, we always had to be someplace and somebody had to know it before we even became citizens. Slaves had to have passes to even get off the grounds of where they lived and while transporting themselves to be safe. We've always had some type of aggression, whether it's micro or blatant aggression. Mind you, this woman may have been asking a question, but at the same time, the person that she asked the question to, remember, they're Black in America. So what things have they been through in terms of racism? Because my thing is, you can't be offended when somebody, I mean, you can, but it doesn't make sense. She probably, this was probably one of the first time I'm assuming from reading this article, she was called racist. And I wonder how many times had this young man been asked, "What are you doing? Why are you here? May I help you?" in a negative way. We are born behind enemy lines. We weren't even citizens at one point in this country. And we didn't even have autonomy over ourselves. And things are still happening to this very day. I mean, so when thinking about it, you sort of have to keep it in context. He called her racist. Was it right or was it wrong? Everybody's doing everything based off of what's happened to them. She was offended and he felt probably like, hey, that's the way I felt. Okay, I'll get back on the list.
Okay. Next we have Marion.
Dancy, you did say me, right? You were, your voice was
Yes, ma'am.
garbled a little bit. Okay. There's a lot of static on this end. Okay, earlier when you said 40 years ago, Nancy, this incident happened to my husband and me 40 years ago. We'd been invited to dinner at a dear friend's house. In fact, she was the maid of honor at our marriage. It was this time of year, and she and her husband lived in a very upscale neighborhood. It was in the evening. As I said, we were invited to dinner. As we parked the car, got out of the car and started walking down the sidewalk, this man came rushing toward us. I started taking my pocketbook off my shoulder because I was gonna hit him. And I didn't realize he had on a guard uniforms, security guard uniform. And he said, "What are you people doing in this neighborhood?" He was a Black security guard. And I was really just taken aback. So my husband said, "Oh, we're going to a friend's house." He was kind of ticked off too. So, "Well, where does your friend live?" So then I spoke up. I said, "She lives right across the street. We're almost there." As it so happened, she came out of the door. She was expecting us because we were supposed to arrive at 7 o'clock. And she was so embarrassed. She turned red and she was trying to take a tone where everything was okay. So the guy said, the security guard said, "Well, okay, ma'am." So when we got in the house, she said, "Oh, Marion and Jack, I'm so sorry." I said, that's okay. But I was really offended. And as I said, if I'd hit the guy with my purse, then I guess I would have been arrested, but I didn't know who he was. And he was rushing toward us, but I've never forgotten that. And I felt so offended. I started thinking afterwards, we talked about it on the way home. Okay, that was the crux of the story. So I'll listen to everybody else. That went by fast.
Yeah, 2 minutes goes by quickly. Thank you, Marion.
Fast.
Beatrice.
Yeah, I'm thinking a couple of things. One is the issue of agency. This young man, if he had needed somebody's help, if he needed to look away from his phone, if he needed this woman's help, he could have asked for it, but he didn't. She thought that she was helping, but perhaps her tone, perhaps the proximity, I don't know how far away she was from him. I'm not even sure what gave her in her mind to think she needed to say anything at all. You know, that nobody says you are to be the person that has to ask everybody, can you help them? And it may have been tone. As I said, proximity is really important. If somebody is close to you and appears to need something, you might quietly say, "Hey, are you okay?" Or like, "Phyllis, can I help you find?" There is a way, there's a tone, but sometimes people just feel that it is their right to secure something by the way they say or by saying anything at all. I would also think, that not just how you speak, but the setting, that there's just so much that needs to be taken with human relations, human reactions, especially where communication is involved, especially where race might come into play. You got to know what you're doing.
Glenn.
The area I live in is called Colonial Hills. And one of the things we always say at our community meetings, if you see somebody, smile and wave, because it lets them know I see you. It can be somebody in their car passing through that I haven't seen before, and I'll just wave. I know the name of my neighbors. I give them pralines for Christmas. I give them Easter. I hang things on their doors for Easter. If there are things that you can do so that even if it's somebody you don't know, you can have a welcoming attitude. If they're not doing anything they're not supposed to be doing, I mean, I think we just have to be careful how we approach one another, no matter what's in your heart. You don't know what's going to come out your mouth. Because like Greer is saying, we don't know what people's experiences are. What are you carrying in your head, in your heart from your own experiences with race? So do not assume that you are Miss Goody Two Shoes. Are you lost? Obviously, if I'm standing up looking at my phone, I'm not lost. And if I am, I have agency to say, I need your help. So just, you're not the savior of the world. Just go somewhere and sit down. Just be careful how you approach people. And sometimes you don't need to approach at all. You're not in charge of nothing. And that's what we were talking about last week with white supremacy. Sometimes you overshoot things because you think that you're always going to come out doing right because you are who you are. Not true. Be careful. Think. Where are you? How close are you to the person you're speaking to? Do you need to say anything at all? Stanton's story is he knew his neighbor, they knew phone numbers, he knew. Just be aware, be alert, be aware, be careful. And watch what comes out your mouth, especially if it's coming from a position of your white supremacy. And if there's, it gets tricky with race, it gets tricky. And so just be careful. That's what I think this woman, now, how he took it is how he took it, because that's who he is. That's his experience. And I'm not
Beatrice, you want to get back on the list?
Oh, I didn't hear the little thing, baby. Oh, I'm good.
Okay.
I'm good.
It's all right. We have Bill, Nora, Becky, Phyllis, Greer, Glenn. Anyone else want to get on the list? Larry. Okay. Bill.
I think in this situation, the words are not so important, although words always are important, but it's the tone, as someone else had said. I think it was Beatrice. It's the tone. And if she had asked it in a helpful tone, then maybe he was being too sensitive. Although I would understand his sensitivity. But if she asked it in an authoritarian tone that implied, what are you doing here? Then she was definitely racist. And judging by the fact that she posted this in a defensive manner confirms in my mind that she was racist. Otherwise, she wouldn't have done that. So I side with the kid on this. But when I approach a man of color, I always use the word sir right at the beginning. Excuse me, sir. And so I'm indicating that I'm respecting him. And my father taught me to do that. So you have to be careful about your tone. She may not have realized in her mind that she was being racist and was committing a microaggression. But I think from reading this, my inference is she spoke in an authoritarian tone, and therefore it was a racist act. So as Beatrice said, be careful how you approach people. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. I just want to interject for a second on that. The words that she used, do you know where you're going? To me, I would have found insulting. Do you know where you're going? And so I think that played a lot into the young man's reaction. You're right, words matter. Words and tone matter. Okay, let's move on.
I don't disagree with you, Nancy. I wasn't focusing quite so much on the words, but
yeah.
Tone. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Nora is next.
Okay, so it's like, oh, I wasn't there. I don't know. I didn't know the tone. I don't know the situation. So it was, it just kind of was up in the air for me what was going on in that scenario. But I also thought, it seems like we own spaces, whether it's geographic or ideological spaces. So it's like, this is my space to be in. Why are you in my space? And and I live right on a corner, and I see people driving by, and I see people stop and parked on the road, and I'm thinking, what are they doing here? And do they belong here? And so I don't know, there's this whole sense of entitlement, like this is my space, and why are you in my space? And I have maybe had the audacity to go to spaces where I wasn't sure if I belonged. I've gone to Black churches and wondered, am I in a space that I shouldn't be in? So I just think that's very, very curious how we all kind of maybe define our spaces and who belongs in our spaces. That's all.
Thank you, Nora. Next we have Becky.
Well, I guess I have something positive to say. I have an African-American partner, and we live on sort of an island north of Boston. And I think he is the only person of color on the island. And people have been so welcoming to him. I just thought I would give another side to this. And they stop and speak to him, say who they are, and they have a chat. And because he's often out in a detached garage, which has an antique car that he loves. So he's up there by himself. So that's nice. But we have been in situations. I think the worst thing that was ever said to him, sadly, was said in New Orleans when we were going to a restaurant, and it was really a nasty comment. But gosh, I guess this month I'm 88 years old. People do stop and ask me if I need help or am I lost when I'm out and about because of my age. So it's not negative, but on the other hand, you know, if it wasn't for my age, I don't think they'd be stopping and saying anything. And so I just thought I would say that it's not a space, I'm in your space issue, but it is interesting that people notice, I guess, and are apt to say something for a variety of reasons, as well as that of being racist. So that's all.
Okay, thank you, Becky. Next we have Phyllis.
So I think the difference between a white person sometimes asking a Black person why they're where they are, it's kind of like the white person has a sense, it's what Nora and somebody else touched on. They're almost like policing the presence of people of color. And a few years ago, well, more than a few years ago now, when I was in social work school, we were, there was a Prospect One, the art exhibits in town. There was a second line from St. Roch Cemetery to the school that I can't remember the name of, where there were a lot of the art exhibits on display. So some people from my class and I went over and participated in the second line and over to the school. And then we went back to, one of the other classmates walked with me to go back to get my car, and I got a little off track. And a young African American woman came up to us, and there was not a lot of people out on the street. And she said, "Are you all lost?" And I said, "Oh no, my car's just over by the cemetery," but I got turned around. We were doing the second line. And she said, "Oh," my classmate was also white. She said, "Y'all need to be careful around here." So she was looking out for our safety. And that is a huge difference. Now, I wasn't nervous at all in the neighborhood. I felt completely fine. But, you know, I said, "Oh, thank you. We'll just go get my car and move it over by the school." So I think that's the difference in what we're talking about. White people policing the presence of Black people because they think they might be up to something, and a Black person looking out for me in a neighborhood that was not very white. So that might clarify something. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, Bill, I see you. Let's see. We have Greer, Glenn, Larry, Michelle, and Bill. Greer?
Leonetta has her hand up.
And Leonetta, okay.
Mhm. Okay, my uncle was
Jean.
talking.
Jean.
And Jean? Okay, we'll see where we are after that, okay? All right, Greer?
Okay. My uncle Glenn was talking about how, you know, people talk about people and how disrespectful that is. But if you look at our history in America, white people have always had the platform to be able to talk about African Americans, especially during the civil rights. And with the advent of Trump, now we have these Kens and Karens who feel it's their job to police us as citizens in the country that we live. people have always talked about people, no doubt. I mean, but back in the day when African Americans didn't have platforms in terms of television station or media outlet, basically they talked about what was going on in the world and how it was affecting them, either sitting on the porch, at the barber shop, or just at little gatherings. With the advent of Trump, I think how people are feeling braver in what they do and when they're doing wrong and they don't care. But then they get all upset when they get called on it, like the lady who was accusing the man of hurting her in the park, and he's standing at a distance only because he asked her to put her dog on a leash. Or a young girl selling bottles of water. A lady called the police on her. Or Barbecue Becky, who told people they couldn't barbecue in a place designated for barbecue. I'll say this about America. This is the only place where you can go to court to fight for the right to be wrong. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Greer. Next, we have Glenn.
Talking about the Supreme Court election, electing someone for the Supreme Court, an African American woman, the way she is being questioned. If y'all notice, each party will do that to any candidate that comes up. Nobody is praising the candidate. Everyone is trying to destroy that candidate. Clarence Thomas was what they tried to destroy him when he came up. The Democrats tried to destroy him. They had this guy named Booker. The Democrats tried to destroy him. They did, and certainly with the white woman who was just got appointed, they tried to destroy her. So it's equality on these matters. Just because you see a black woman, that she should be grilled, or whoever President Biden who was appointed was going to get raked over the hot coals. So we want equality, but we really don't want equality. We only want special circumstances for ourselves. In this meeting here, racism. I've seen if a white person really express themselves here, the blacks will really get angry about it. I witnessed that, and none of you can deny it. So, don't always look at it as racism. Just look at that we're participating in a country that has freedom of speech. That's it.
Thank you, Glenn. Next, we have Larry.
Thank you. I think
Marion had a qualifying question.
Marion had I'm sorry. Marion, ask your question. Unmute.
And be sure you tell her there's got to be qualified.
Unmute, Marion. Okay.
Never mind that. Did I unmute?
Yes.
All right. What do you mean when you said when the white people say something, the black people get angry? There was static on my end, and I didn't hear that part of your statement.
When we have had over the years, I've been here since 1994, and a white person express something that we don't like, we get angry, and that's a fact. But we can say anything on our mind or in all our heart. We can criticize them, but we don't want them criticizing us.
Well, I disagree, but we're not going to have a back and forth.
No, we can't. Okay, Cindy, do you have a clarifying question? Unmute.
Withdraw because it wasn't really a question. I disagree
Okay.
with the.
Okay, not unusual. Okay, next we have Michelle, Bill, Leonetta, and Jean. Oh, Larry, I'm sorry, Larry had to go, and then we have Michelle, Bill, Leonetta, and Jean.
Yes.
Larry?
Thank you. I, of course, disagree with Glenn, but you know, there are many Karen moments. This was not one of them. And I think there's a verse of scripture in the Bible where Jesus says, because iniquity shall abound, the love of many will wax cold. And I think we have to be very careful with accusations. Every question, you know, should not be taken as a threat. A lot of times it's the response to the question that can elevate a situation and cause it to get out of control. So if somebody asks a question, sometimes the response might be, no, I'm fine. Now, if the questioner takes it to another level, then that could pose a problem. But I was 10 times more offended with the questioning of Judge Jackson, you know, than I would be if a woman asked a young Black man if he was lost. Out of the kindness of her heart, she could have been concerned. And we don't want to blow every situation out of proportion and call every situation racist and then put fear into people's hearts of wanting to have a legitimate concern about the welfare of other people, you know. So if I were lost late at night, walking through a all-white neighborhood, and somebody approached me and asked me, you know, are you lost? You having a problem? I could very well be lost. It could be my response. They could legitimately want to help me. So every moment is not a Karen moment. It's how we respond. I think that counts. No, thank you for asking. I'm fine. And that could be the end of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. Right on time. Michelle, she's still here.
Yeah, I'll be leaving after this.
Okay.
Yeah, I just the thought that I think maybe Nora earlier pointed out about psychological spaces that we feel like they belong to us, or kind of struck me because I was reminded of a secondhand account that my husband just recently told me about in regards to his sister who lives up in New Jersey, and until just recently, I did not know that she had a Black boyfriend. But apparently the two of them were at a football game in Buffalo, in New York, and were together, of course. And apparently, at some point when they were walking together or whatever, a Black woman and man couple approached them, and the woman said apparently to my sister-in-law's boyfriend, Black boyfriend, basically, you should be ashamed of yourself. And, you know, basically that was it, and walked on. And it just, you know, I just have to point out, it's interesting that people feel the need and the right to approach people in neutral spaces like that and express their opinion to them out of the blue. And, you know, it's a questionable thing for me too. I understand, I've read, you know, now that I'm educated on the situation and I understand the history behind, you know, black men being with white women and all the history and baggage that and the fear that can instill for Black women. And I understand all that, but it's, you know, left me with the question about whether or not that was truly a quote unquote racist incident or not. But it definitely did strike me as, you know, just a rude incident from one human being to another to impose on another person in a public space like that. So just an observation I wanted to throw out there.
Thank you, Michelle. Okay, and have a good day if you're leaving right now. Okay, bye. Okay, we have on the list, and I'm closing it after this, is Bill, Leonetta, Jean, and Phyllis. And then after these 4 people have an opportunity to speak, we're going to move to the wrap up because it's 11:02 and there are a lot of people. Okay, so Bill.
Yeah, I agree with Greer that unfortunately the 45th president has legitimized a lot of white racist comments. But I also say on the good side, a lot of those whites are getting called out and facing consequences. The woman who incorrectly reported the Black man in Central Park lost her job as a result, and I feel she should have. But a lot of these situations, the whites who commit the crimes or the aggressions face no consequences. Personally, I have found that African Americans are more likely to be good Samaritans than white people. And when Cindy and I were canvassing for political candidates in mostly Black neighborhoods, people expressed first of all, a real welcoming, but some expressed a concern for our safety. And this was in a day, and we didn't feel there was any problem, and we never encountered any problem. But I think, to go back to what Nancy said, her situation where the Black person was singled out for treatment that was not happening with whites. There was a situation in a neighborhood association meeting where someone on the board called out another board member who was African American in terms of dues. And there were many other white people who hadn't paid their dues. So she was singled out. So I called out the person who spoke of the Black woman, and tried to make it a teaching moment. And she realized, to her credit, she realized the impression that her comments generated, and it was unintended. So she apologized to the African American woman first in one-on-one, and then she apologized to her in front of the board that witnessed her behavior. So that was a good correction, unlike this woman in the article who got defensive.
Okay, thank you, Bill. Next we have Leonetta.
Yes, I just wanted to share an experience too, Bill. I went to Archbishop Chappelle High School. I had a class of 320 classmates, and there were 2 Black girls out of that class. I can't even count the times during high school that I went to their house, and I was questioned by neighbors. My dad when he would be coming to pick me up, how he was questioned, how the police were called on him, and we just took it as part of being in a just nobody got offended. Well, I don't think my dad got offended, but it was just a part of going to an all-white school. And as I got older, it's not happening to me as much. I think I guess with age comes, I don't know, care or whatever. But in my younger age, and when I was younger and was in integrated neighborhoods, I was always questioned about why was I there. So I don't know. I never got offended. I don't know. Maybe I was too young and stupid to get offended. I don't know. But I never did get offended. But it just, I've always looked upon it as being in the South. And not excusing it, but I just let it roll off my back. And I'm going to have to leave everybody. I'm going to see my dad. So
all right.
See y'all next week. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Leonetta. Okay, next we have Jean.
Okay, I have to leave shortly. But
Okay.
I just wanted to say that I really liked, it made me really appreciate my neighborhood. My street even. We have Asian couples, we have Middle Eastern, we have Palestinian, we have African American, we have gay, several gay couples with their children. And when anybody knocks on my door or I see them outside, it never occurs to me to ask them if they're lost, because there are just so many different types of people and that come through the neighborhood. There's a park at the end of the street with a basketball court and soccer field at the other end of the street. So we have Latinos. You know, Halloween is really a trip because they come from other streets as well. And it's really nice. I really enjoy it. And I think part of the problem is that we've got to look at affordable housing and get rid of segregated housing. The head of our neighborhood association is Black. Alan has got his finger in many pies. And the head of there are many people in the Silver Spring Village who are Black. A lot of my Black women friends are on it. But, you know, it's unfortunate that people are so suspicious of someone who doesn't look like them sometimes. So, but I have to leave now. I'm going to the National Building Museum and volunteer. Okay.
Cheryl, wait a minute, Cheryl had a clarifying. Cheryl, did you have a clarifying question?
Oops. Jean, where do you live?
I live in Silver Spring, Maryland, Montgomery County, which is a majority minority county. And unfortunately, there are many segregated areas, and it doesn't reflect that doesn't always reflect. We have a county executive who I think works very hard towards that. But okay, everybody, I hope everybody's safe after the tornado. And
yes,
I look forward to seeing you next week.
All right, thank you, Jean.
Okay, love you all.
All right, love you too. Bye. And lastly, we have Phyllis, and then we'll move to the wrap up.
So maybe a couple months ago, right after our Erace Zoom meeting, I got up to open my curtains just in time to see an elderly Black man who was walking with a cane. He was going into the street around a car that was parked, and he tripped over his feet and he fell down. And picture the least threatening human being you could ever see. So I go outside and I walk out the back door of my building and I say, "Sir, are you okay?" And he said, "I can't get up." And then as I walked into the street, I looked down the street and a man who recently moved into a house down there who's white is standing in the street on his cell phone. And I think he was talking to either our district security patrol or he had called 911. I don't know which, but he wasn't close to the man. He was like half a block away. And the man is in the street next to a parked car where cars come around the corner really fast. And so I walked up to him and he was able to sit up and I wasn't physically able to like help him stand back up. So I waved the guy up the street towards us and I heard him say on the phone, "No, I think he's okay." And a car starts to turn the corner and the man says, he like scoots close to the car. He's like, "Oh, let him go by." I'm like, "No, they can go around the block." And I shooed them away. And so the white guy down the street helped the man stand up and then he went on his way. But I was like, why are you down the street on a phone instead of walking up to this person who's laying in the street and talking to him? And I think it was that thing where it's like, oh, maybe, I think maybe the guy was thinking, maybe it's a trick, maybe it's a trap, maybe somebody's going to jump out if I try to help him. And I mean, the guy went away as soon as he helped him stand up, the white guy. So I don't know what his thoughts were, but that was disappointing. So
Okay, thank you, Phyllis.
Thanks.
And right on time. Okay, it is 11:11, and given that there are 17 of us, I think we should start our wrap up. There are people who haven't had a chance to speak. And if you would like to speak, because you can say pass, and not say anything. But if you would like to, you can take the full 2 minutes. Okay, and then we will move on to our 1-minute people who have already spoken. So I'd like to start with Aaron. You can have 2 minutes or you can pass.
Well, I don't really know what to say exactly. I'll just share my perception of this story quickly, I guess, is that you just don't know because you weren't there. But whether she was intentionally racist or not, which I guess she wasn't, she says she wasn't intentionally so, I'm just really glad that he felt comfortable saying something, even if it was a misperception, because I think in the history of America, it has not been accepted to say something. And things like that don't get cleared up if you can't express, oh, that was offensive to me. So anyway, I've been in situations, I remember one time I was walking down the street in a city and I crossed the street. And then I realized a Black man said, "Oh, I'm not going to get you." And I realized I hadn't even registered that there was anyone there. And he thought I was crossing the street to avoid him. So I know for sure, like, things happen that aren't intentional. But, I'm just glad that he felt comfortable saying something at this point in history. So.
All right, thank you so much. Next, Ginger.
Yes, thank you so much for this article today, Nancy. It was great being with you all. I just have a couple of comments. I here in Atlanta, I live in a primarily white neighborhood, and there are young people all the time staring down at their phones. And it had me think, so if there was a young African-American person looking down at their phone, would I stop and say, "Do you need help?" And I would hope that I wouldn't, because one of the things I've learned or tried to learn, maybe not very successfully over the years in being part of a race, is how I show up in the world as a white-bodied person, and I have white body supremacy. And so I just have to always be aware of that and how I might be perceived by someone else, particularly somebody who it looks and is different from me age-wise and every other wise. So anyway, it had me thinking. I appreciate so much this article and being with you all today. So thank you.
Thank you, Ginger. Next we have Cheryl. Unmute, there you go.
Thank you very much. I really appreciated the article and being able to listen to everyone. I did make plenty of comments, but I just wrote them on a piece of paper. I think overall am impressed with this conversation coming up. Is we talked about racism, sexism, ageism, and I don't know if anyone here, I don't see anyone that's blind. I don't see anyone who's missing a limb because I can't see all of you. I don't know anyone's sexuality. But I think that I think that everyone, myself, should always think and feel and be present before I open my mouth.
Absolutely. Thank you, Cheryl. Okay, next I have Louise.
That's a big ask, Cheryl, isn't it? Before you open your mouth. Which I have been, but I still, I don't know. I'm pretty sure it was a microaggression, which she probably thought it was coming from a good place. And that's the whole point about microaggressions, isn't it? You think you're being, I mean, that's the whole point of them. So yes, I do think that was, she needed, and as far as a kid or a teenager looking into their phone, I mean, my God, that's where it is the whole time. That's what kids do. They walk around with a head in their phone. So, why would she assume that he was lost? Anywho, and also as far as your area, as Nora was saying, yes, I sit out front having an adult beverage and sitting with my friends and neighbors. And if we see a truck going by that we don't recognize, or a, person walk by, we're like, I mean, we're not like, we don't follow them or call, 911 or anything, but it's like, haven't seen them before. So I mean, it's just a natural instinct if you've been in the neighborhood for a long time, which we have here, and we know all our neighbors. You know, it's just like, oh, new people, or who are they, or that's all. Just natural curiosity. But I think that's all I got to say, really.
Okay, well, thank you, Louise. Marva.
Good article, Nancy, and great discussion. I have had my second speech therapy session, and hopefully I can start sharing, participating in this discussion in the future.
Okay, thank you, Marva. Very good. Okay, well, let's move on to our 1 minute people. Okay, Francie.
Well, as a follow-up to Glenn made me think a little bit about, well, why was I offended? And the reason that I kind of came up with was I've been accused of being where I'm not supposed to be as a young person. And the questioning came across as to the potential Supreme Court judge, Ms. Jackson, as though she wasn't supposed to be there. You know, how dare you come into the white person's, especially white man's space. And I think that was part of the identification I had with her, beyond just the snarkiness of the questions. And I don't agree with Glenn that Black people can speak out in the same way that white people can. And this was a good topic. Obviously, everybody had something to say, Nancy, so thank you.
Well, thank you, Francie. I was hoping it would be. I really was. Had my fingers crossed. Okay, Nora.
So before I lived in Austin, I lived in a very tight-knit community, conservative, very religious, none of which describes me. And I was asked by another white woman, why are you here? So, and it was just a, it was hurtful, and I really felt kind of cast out, like I didn't belong. So I got just a little bit of taste of how that feels, but nowhere near what it's like for a person of color to be questioned about their belonging and maybe even physically threatened, as people have been. So yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Nora. Becky.
I think this was really a good topic. And so many people joined in and had something good to say. So thanks very much for including me, I guess. And I really appreciate being here.
Okay, thank you, Becky. Stanton.
Good conversation. Really appreciate everybody's input, but I'd especially like to give a shout out to Beatrice. My takeaway from this entire group meeting today was sit down, you're in charge of nothing. I loved it. I think I want a bumper sticker that says that. So thank you, Beatrice.
Great, great, thank you. Phyllis.
I have to say this, when I first read this article, I wondered if the person who posted the original thing, if it was sort of a false story to work up white people who feel like they, get in trouble for the simplest of things. So that crossed my mind because I don't trust the internet. I don't think the internet is a thing that gets divided, as the headline was written by Newsweek. And so that crossed my mind too, that it could have been just a ploy to make white people feel more victimized than than they really are. And I agree with Francie, the senators, especially one from our own state here, were completely offensive in their questioning of a woman who is smarter and more qualified than any of them could ever hope to be. Thanks.
Thank you, Phyllis. Bill.
Great article, Nancy, and it, like all the articles in Erace, the conversation brings it to life. And this was a great conversation starter. I agree with Stanton, who agreed with Beatrice. We're not in charge of anything. I mean, if we see someone in danger, like George Floyd, we should interject, but otherwise, it's not our job to be the policeman of the world, but it is our job to protect someone in danger, of course. But the clincher for me that this woman was acting in a racist manner is the fact that she got defensive. Instead of reflecting on what the young man said and seeing if she could learn something, she immediately got defensive, and then she posted on the internet, portraying herself as the victim when she was the perpetrator. And so thanks again, Nancy.
Okay, thank you, Bill. Cindy.
It was an interesting discussion. A lot depends for me if I'm in a situation that I know all the people around, like in a work setting, then you kind of know a little bit of what to expect. But just walking the streets in the neighborhood or in the grocery store, wherever, you really don't know. And I think we need to pay, I know I need to pay better attention to what I'm about to say before I just say it. Think about the impact. What is it? Is there something unintended that you're suggesting? And sort of censor ourselves a little bit. Okay. It was a thought-provoking discussion. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, Larry. Unmute. There you go.
I think we all have to work on becoming desensitized. You know, we're too sensitive to some things.
I agree.
There are a lot of things that could be, labeled racial without being racist. And I think for something to be racist, you've got to kind of get into a person's mind and know where they're coming from. But Francie opened up with her stating that she was offended by the questioning of Judge Jackson, and I agree totally with her. You know, if we just briefly go back into the days of old when the white slave masters could rape a Black woman at will and there was no recourse for her. And when I saw Graham and Ted Cruz and Josh Hawley questioning Judge Jackson the way they did, I saw that as a rape of her character. And yes, other Supreme Court nominees faced tough questioning, but that was just a rape of her character. And I was more disappointed that a lot of the white male senators didn't come to her defense as Senator Booker did. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Larry. So true. So true. Beatrice.
Good article, great conversation as usual. And I just want to echo people about Judge Brown Jackson. Her questioning was far beyond what others have experienced in that same situation. Others have those questions were far beyond anything that should have been asked. It had nothing to do with her qualifications. A lot of it was dog whistling to QAnon, especially that stuff about her sentencing of that young man. I read the history of his case, and it is very interesting what she decided about about this 18-year-old. A lot of them were just making statements for political campaigns, and it was painful. And thank God for Cory Booker. Thank God for Cory Booker. Could we not all be able to speak up in that way when we see somebody hurt like that? So anyway, great conversation. Good to be with you all as usual. And thanks for the shout out about sitting down. I like that. Okay.
Thank you, Beatrice. Very good. Glenn?
Well deserved, Beatrice.
Glenn, you there? Maybe Glenn got up. Okay, Greer?
I'm going to say this, just from reading the article, I read it like several times. First and foremost, these young people live on their phones. They do everything through their phones that we could only imagine about doing. They know those phones back and forth. So him being lost, I really couldn't see it, being that they're so technologically inclined with phones. But what I got from the woman is she's never been asked, do you belong here? She's never been questioned about her place in any situation. And she got caught up in her feelings. And rather than reflect on why this kid would say that to her, it became a hurt issue. She's never had to justify herself in being anywhere at any time. And I guarantee you this young man's had to do it for a very long time. And I'll leave it at that.
Okay, thank you. Glenn, did you come back? Okay, he's not responding. All right. Well, I'll just wrap this up by saying I don't have a lot to say. The discussion turned out the way that I hoped that it would spark a lot of debate. It is very subjective because as once she thought she was helping. I think Phyllis made a very good point about being trained how to ask someone. If you need help, excuse me, can I help you? The tone matters, the words matter, and put yourself sometimes in their shoes. I also do understand concern. I see strange people sometimes walking up and down the street, and I'm like, well, what are you doing in this neighborhood? We all think that if we see someone that is unfamiliar or someone that's dressed differently, perhaps, could be a lot of things about the person in your neighborhood that, causes you to take a second look and wonder, is this someone who lives here or is this someone just passing through? Is this someone casing, the street, looking at because we've had a number of people around here, for whatever reason, they think they're so safe and secure. They don't lock their car doors, okay? I don't know why you wouldn't do that, but they don't. And then they get on, next door and talk about how somebody went through their car. Well, you should lock your door, okay? But the point still remains that there are people who can come through the neighborhood, even though it's supposed to be a secure neighborhood, come through the neighborhood, and you have to be, as Tommy Tucker puts it, you got to have your head on the swivel all the time. Unfortunately, crime, it has gotten to that point. So anyway, I just think that all of us need to take a deep breath, step back, don't be so reactive, but also at the same time, be more aware of how our words and our tone affect people. Okay. So I guess we can stop recording.